one of those moments where I look back and I say, how did you find yourself in this scenario, in this situation? So I reflect on that day at the Bubbles party in New York City.
Cuba, what do you say to your fans? What's your message, Cuba? Cuba, what do you say to everyone? What do you say to the accusers?
You do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about all this?
I'm not surprised too much, but Cuba's a wild boy. Like that's never been hidden. You know, his nickname that he would tell everybody is butt naked.
Cuba Gooding Jr. is facing yet another disgraceful lawsuit. And at this point, it looks like the chances of him getting back to his former glory in Hollywood are close to zero. Now, we all know that Cuba's out-of-control behavior is not exactly fresh news, but after photos recently resurfaced on social media showing Cuba partying with none other than Diddy, fans are putting the two and two together and saying, maybe Cuba is even worse than we thought. So is this really the final chapter of Cuba's career? And what's up with his rumored friendship with Diddy? Let's get into it.
They explained to this person what they saw on the tapes, and the person obviously went ahead with putting out a warrant for my arrest.
Back in the 90s, Cuba Gooding Jr. was a heavy hitter in Hollywood, on track to be one of the most successful black actors of his time. In 1996, he won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for Jerry Maguire, solidifying his spot in the acting world. And being an Oscar winner catapults you into this exclusive club of actors. Plus, you can start stacking those coins higher for your movie gigs. Some folks even managed to double up their old rates, just because that golden statue's on their shelf. Now, being black and snatching an Oscar back in the 90s, that was a major flex because not many black actors were getting that kind of recognition. Now, for most actors, after they secure that Oscar, their careers take off. But for Cuba, it was like the reverse because soon after that win, his life and career took a nosedive. But honestly, he's got no one but himself to blame because getting that Oscar had Cuba thinking he could get choosy with the gigs he took. Now, on the one hand, he wasn't wrong because an Oscar does give you that privilege. But Cuba wasn't gracious about it, and he started turning down amazing roles just because he thought they were beneath him. Post-Oscar glory, Cuba had roles coming at him left and right. He was sitting pretty, taking his sweet time to cherry pick what he vibed with. But his ego got the best of him, and he started making all the wrong calls. He passed up on leading gigs in major movies like Hotel Rwanda, Ray, Amistad, Collateral, and many more. He even got offered the leading role in The Last King of Scotland to play Ugandan dictator Idi Amin. But Cuba rejected the offer, and the role eventually went to Forest Whitaker, earning him an Oscar for Best Actor. And if Cuba hadn't been all caught up in his own hype, he might have bagged his second Oscar. But that ship has sailed now. When they later asked Cuba why he kept turning down all these incredible opportunities, he acted like none of these roles were good enough for him and said, "For me, it was always about protecting the sanctity of that golden statue because I felt I needed to show people that I can do more. I can do better." I know it sounds crazy, but in Cuba's mind, it added up somehow, and he kept shutting down offers from major studios. So naturally, the roles eventually started drying up for Cuba. Directors were fed up with his constant rejections and decided to roll with other talented actors who didn't bring the same diva vibes. Now, Cuba did eventually own up to messing up his own game by being too picky, but it was too late. In an interview with The Guardian, he said, "I had all these big directors offering me roles, and I read their scripts and said, I don't think this part is right for me. And what happens is, if you offend enough big directors, you get taken off their lists." But that's not all. On top of foolishly turning down some amazing opportunities, Cuba also started blowing through the money he earned from his past projects. He was buying houses left and right, rolling in with fancy whips, jet setting on private flights, just living the absolute high life. But then life hit him with a major psych, and just as quickly as he blew up, he found himself flat broke. That's when Cuba woke up to the reality that that one Oscar he won wasn't gonna pay the bills forever. So he finally decided to get back on his grind, taking whatever roles were coming his way. And this time around, he didn't have the luxury to worry about protecting the sanctity of that golden statue. He started taking every offer that came his way, and he didn't care about the prestige because, let's be real, he wasn't pulling in any of that. The movies he was in, let's just say they weren't winning any awards, and folks weren't raving about his performances. And don't even get me started started on that train wreck that was that 2002 flick Boat Trip. All I'm gonna say is that thing has a 7% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But then in 2016, life threw him a bone. He landed the gig playing O.J. Simpson in the limited series American Crime Story. Things started looking up from there, slow and steady. He even snagged a nod for an Emmy in the Outstanding Lead Actor in a Miniseries or Movie category. But just when it looked like Cuba was making a comeback from being in the Hollywood doghouse, he messed it up again. And this time, it was his behavior around women that got him in trouble. Around 2019, multiple women started coming forward accusing Cuba of being all kinds of creepy, if you catch my drift. By that point, his wife of 20 years and mother of his children, Sarah Capper, had already filed for divorce after reports surfaced she got tired of dealing with Cuba's wandering eye and the cheating game. Word on the street is that Cuba hooked up with a cocktail waitress named Elise Lamont just 3 days after tying the knot, and it didn't stop there. He also allegedly got involved with actress Jeanette Carr on the side. But Jeanette swore up and down she didn't know Cuba was married. She claimed he spun her a tale saying he and his wife were on the verge of divorce. You know, the oldest trick in the cheater's playbook. Anyway, once his wife dipped, that's when the bad vibes went off the charts for Cuba. It's like he was holding back a bit, but once the separation hit, all bets were off. Accusations started flying about him getting handsy with multiple women, and eventually 30 different women came forward claiming Cuba tried to get touchy-feely without their consent. According to the gossip mill, there was this one time he randomly kissed a woman at a Miami hotel right after he got caught shirtless in a nightclub the night before. There was also this surveillance footage obtained by TMZ showing Cuba getting all handsy with a woman at a bar. We straight up see him putting his hands on her, and we know she didn't sign up for that because a few days later, she filed a complaint. And since by that point, Cuba was already facing a bunch of other accusations from different women, he was arrested and booked on charges of a misdemeanor relating to an incident in which he allegedly put his hands on a woman at a bar in Times Square. He was eventually indicted on a separate additional charge. Cuba eventually agreed to plead guilty in exchange for his conviction being reduced to a lesser charge. The plea deal allowed him to avoid jail time as long as he continued counseling for 6 months. But y'all know karma never misses, and just last November, weeks after Cassie opened the floodgates with her lawsuit against Diddy, Cuba also got slapped with a new lawsuit, filed by the same women whose cases against Cuba ended with him pleading guilty, but serving no jail time. The women were able to file the lawsuit under the Adult Survivors Act, the same law that allowed Cassie to sue Diddy. The alleged victim's lawyer, Gloria Allred, said in a statement, "Our clients were deprived of the justice they sought in the criminal case. They are now seeking justice and accountability in their civil cases." Now, what's also curious is that photos recently resurfaced online of Cuba partying with Diddy, and fans are saying it's all starting to make sense. You know what they say, birds of a feather flock together. As for Cuba's future in Hollywood, he's been trying to sneak back into the spotlight through the back door by doing indie movies. But let's just say no one is lining up to work with him. I guess Cat Williams was right when he said 2024 is the year of exposure.
Period. All of these big deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is, TG Jakes, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all.
Anyway, fans are not shedding any tears over Cuba's fall from grace because as talented as he is, it seems like he chose the other side Cat spoke of.
Race is not where the line is drawn. It's God's side and the other side. And we don't care nothing about the other side. Period.
Someone said, "I stopped liking Cuba years ago. There was something fake about him. Can't put my finger on it. I think that's why he was so good as OJ. You could feel he wasn't being authentic." And another fan added, "He killed his career, being a party boy and putting his hands on people. He's been on a run since he won the Oscar. He's never stopped. Everyone in the industry knows he's too unstable." But what's your take on Cuba's fall from grace? And do you think him hanging out with Diddy means they were both up to the same mess? Let me know in the comments, and then check out this next video.